What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Together, directed by Michael Shanks and produced by leading couple Dave Franco and Alison Brie. This comes to us from Neon and it was one of my most anticipated horror films of the year. Together is currently facing a lawsuit over alleged copyright infringements. And I'm going to be honest, based on what I've read so far, which is very little, I'm sure there's more details that I'm not aware of, and most people are probably not aware of it yet. It is an ongoing legal process. The evidence that's being used to corroborate these claims is not particularly convincing to me. I think it's certainly possible that at the very least, Shanks did borrow some ideas from another indie film called Better Half. But in the grand scheme of things, most modern films borrow at least some elements from other films in the past. So I'm not going to comment more on this matter until we know the full effect of what's going on. I mean, maybe they did plagiarize the script of this other film, and if we find that out, I will be greatly disappointed. But we're here to review the film, so let's get into it. Alison Brie and Dave Franco star as Millie and Tim, an unmarried couple who find themselves at a bit of a crossroads when they move deep into the country against Tim's wishes. Tim is unable to drive because he doesn't have his license, so he kind of relies on Millie for any form of transportation, whether that be for work or social events. Millie, on the other hand, is, among many other things, a terrible cook. So each partner relies on the other for various different things in life, and it becomes clear early on that this entire film is an allegory for codependency and this parasitism that we see in a lot of relationships in real life. You know, relationships in which neither party seems to be truly happy or fulfilled. They're more so in a state of complacency. I think partners are capable of knowing deep down that they're not right for one another, but find it easier to take the path of least resistance and choose an uneasy bond over loneliness. And everything that I'm saying right now is demonstrated in a very on-the-nose fashion by these two characters, but it works because of how cleverly written it is. Tim, in particular, is clearly a very broken person with a lot of unresolved issues. So when these two characters are cursed with this horrific prospect of becoming a fused, singular body, all of that emotional baggage sort of seeps out of them. It's certainly a lot funnier than I was expecting it to be. These incidents of bodily fusion start small and get increasingly awkward and uncomfortable as the film goes along. And yes, some of them involve some gore and pretty disturbing elements, but there is a lot of levity in between these sequences. For the most part, I'm pleased to report that the humor feels natural. It feels like something the characters would say in these situations, because of course what's happening to them is absurd, and when they aren't understanding why it's happening, or what's even happening to them, it just makes sense that they would say things like this. With that said, there are a few moments where the levity does undercut the moments of tension and broke the immersion for me a bit, because I wanted to feel the dread that did creep under my skin occasionally during some of these more intense moments, and to follow that up immediately with a joke and a punchline didn't always land well for me. But it certainly has some very strong practical effects. I think John Carpenter and David Cronenberg would be more than proud of something like this, which certainly takes elements from 80s movies like The Thing and The Fly, movies that have a lot of bodily transformations. It's also quite in line with last year's The Substance, so if you enjoyed what you got from that film, you get a lot of that here too. I don't know that it quite lands its themes as well as The Substance did, although it certainly is equally on the nose and obvious what it's going for. Where the film did start to lose me a little bit is how it provides the context for why all of these horrible things are going on. I don't need an explanation of how it's happening, and the film thankfully keeps it mostly ambiguous. You certainly get a few glimpses into certain things that may have led to this curse, so to speak, being placed upon these characters. And it's enough so that I can fill in the rest of the gaps with my imagination, and I think it works in that fashion. However, we spend a lot of time with some other characters that are living in this very desolate town, and I don't think they needed to be there at all. I would have been much more pleased to just spend time with these two characters that I was so much more interested in. When it comes to how the rest of the town is incorporated into the story and the origins for this thing that is causing these bodily terrors to happen to these people, I think it raises more questions than it gives answers, and that just wound up being frustrating to me by the end. Also, to my frustration, the ending forgoes the excellent practical work that was featured in the earlier scenes in favor of CGI that was not particularly convincing to me. In fact, the ending as a whole is kind of a weak point of the film. I just kind of wish that they really went for it with the ending, instead of just doing what most of us are probably going to predict early on in the film. It's not that it was bad, it's just that I knew exactly where it was going, and the execution of it was not as fulfilling as I wanted it to be. I'm also not sure how I feel about the way the ending conveys the themes of the film, because through this entire movie, we're shown how flawed this relationship is, right? And how codependent each partner is on the other. And I don't want to get into spoilers here, but the way that it does end, I feel like you could interpret it different ways, which is, for better or worse, going to leave you thinking and pondering, damn, this might be the kind of movie that I need to watch twice in order to fully put my thoughts together into a coherent argument. But either way, this is definitely a film that I enjoy and would recommend that you check out. It's not like I'm going to watch it a second time and be like, yep, I was wrong, the movie's dog shit. It's the how much I like it that I'm still kind of working through. But right now, I'm confident in saying that Together is one of the more original, fun, inventive body horror films that I've seen in the last couple of years.
Whiskey for the pain.
I'm going to give the film 3.5 stars. It's certainly a strong outing and one of the best films of the year so far, which is a compliment, but also this has not been the greatest year for film. So I guess what I'm trying to say is go check this one out for sure. Make up your own mind on it. I'm probably going to watch it a second time and maybe my score will go up or down 0.5 star. But for the most part, I think this is a win and you should check it out. Support films like this, please. That is assuming the creators of this film didn't steal the script from someone else. This could all blow up in my face if those allegations turn out to be true. But anyways, those are my thoughts on the film. Be sure to let me know once you've seen it down in the comments what you think. Stay tuned for more content like this. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.